They told you monsters aren't real, but they never said why you should stay out of the dark.
Chapter 1. The Puzzle Maker. My name is Ethan Parker, a 32-year-old software developer living in the quiet suburbs of Portland, Oregon. My days followed a comforting routine. Mornings began with a brisk jog through the tree-lined streets, followed by hours of coding at a tech startup, and evenings spent unwinding with a good book or a classic film. I cherished the predictability of my life, finding solace in the familiar patterns that each day offered. My social circle was small but meaningful. I often met up with my best friend, Liam, a graphic designer with a penchant for spontaneous adventures. Our favorite haunt was a cozy cafe downtown, where we would discuss everything from the latest tech trends to our favorite sci-fi novels. On weekends, I visited my parents, who lived a few miles away, relishing my mother's home-cooked meals and my father's stories of his fishing trips. One crisp autumn evening, as I returned home from work, I noticed an envelope resting on my doorstep. It was unmarked, save for my name elegantly written in cursive. Curiosity piqued, I took it inside, settled into my favorite armchair, and carefully opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a cryptic message. Asterisk. To find the truth, follow the numbers. Asterisk. Perplexed, I turned the paper over, searching for any clue about its origin, but found nothing. I considered calling Liam to share this odd occurrence, but decided against it, attributing the note to a harmless prank. I placed the note in my desk drawer, and went about my evening routine, dismissing the incident from my mind. The following morning, as I sipped my coffee and glanced at the daily newspaper, a headline caught my eye. Asterisk. Local teacher found dead under mysterious circumstances. Asterisk. The article detailed the tragic death of Rosa Clark, a well-respected educator in the community. Authorities were baffled by the lack of evidence and the presence of a peculiar clue at the scene, a series of numbers written in red ink. A chill ran down my spine as I recalled the note from the previous evening. I retrieved the note and examined it again, this time with a sense of urgency. The message was clear, yet its meaning eluded me. Who had left it, and why? My once predictable life now felt tinged with an undercurrent of unease, as if the shadows in my orderly world were beginning to shift. Determined to make sense of the situation, I decided to investigate further. I started by researching Rosa Clark, hoping to find a connection between us, but came up empty-handed. We had never met, and our social circles didn't overlap. The only link was the enigmatic note, and the numbers found at the scene of her death. Days turned into weeks, and just as the memory of the note began to fade, another envelope appeared on my doorstep. This time, the message was more ominous. Asterisk. The clock is ticking. Solve the puzzle before it's too late. Asterisk. Fear gnawed me, but so did curiosity. I couldn't ignore the possibility that someone was in danger, and that I held a key to preventing another tragedy. I reached out to Liam, sharing the notes and my concerns. Ever the skeptic, he suggested it was an elaborate joke, but agreed to help me decipher the messages. Together, we pored over the notes, searching for patterns or hidden meanings. The numbers, the handwriting, the phrasing, everything was analyzed in painstaking detail. Despite our efforts, the puzzle remained unsolved, and the sense of impending doom grew stronger with each passing day. One night, as I lay in bed, sleep eluding me, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was an unknown number, and the text contained a single line. Asterisk. Time's up. Asterisk. Panic surged through me. I called Liam, my voice trembling as I recounted the message. He urged me to contact the authorities, but I hesitated, unsure of how to explain the situation without sounding paranoid. In the end, I decided to wait, hoping for more information to present itself. The next morning, the news reported another death. James Miller, a local businessman, found dead under similar mysterious circumstances. Once again, numbers were found at the scene, written in red ink. The realization hit me like a freight train. The killer was playing a game, and I was an unwilling participant. My once orderly life had descended into chaos, the boundaries between normalcy and horror blurring with each passing day. The maniac's twisted game had ensnared me, and I knew that to survive, I had to unravel the mystery before it consumed me entirely. With renewed determination, I delved deeper into the investigation, aware that each moment brought me closer to either solving the puzzle or becoming the next victim in the maniac's deadly game. Chapter 2: Signs of Horror. As the days passed, the notes continued to appear, each one more cryptic than the last. The third note, which I found wedged in the doorframe one morning, was the most unsettling yet. It read, "Truth lies in the mirror. Look closely, and you shall see." The handwriting was the same elegant cursive, but now it seemed to mock me, its loops and flourishes almost playful. My reflection in the bathroom mirror stared back at me as I reread the note. Was there something I was missing? A detail hidden in plain sight? Or was this some twisted metaphor? That day, I avoided mirrors altogether. Later, Liam called to check on me. "You're too deep into this, man," he said, concern evident in his voice. "Maybe it's just someone messing with you." "Messing with me?" I snapped. "2 people are dead. You think this is a joke?" Liam sighed. "Okay, fair. But we can't let it consume us. I mean, maybe take a day off? Clear your head?" I wanted to agree, to cling to the possibility that this was some elaborate hoax, but my gut told me otherwise. And my gut was never wrong. That night, I woke up to the sound of something tapping against my bedroom window. The rhythmic noise pulled me out of a restless sleep. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, with no trees or ledges nearby that could account for the sound. My heart raced as I approached the window, each step heavy with dread. I hesitated, hand trembling as I drew back the curtain. Outside, the night was unnaturally still. The streetlights flickered faintly, casting an eerie glow on the empty sidewalk below. I saw nothing unusual, but the tapping had stopped the moment I opened the curtain. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, scanning the darkness for any signs of movement. Just as I turned away, a shadow shifted in the corner of my vision. I spun back, but there was nothing there. The next morning, another note awaited me, pinned to my car windshield. It was a single word this time. Run. A chill crept up my spine as I crumpled the paper in my fist. I glanced around, but the street was as ordinary as ever. Joggers passed by, chatting and laughing, completely oblivious to the dread that had taken root in my chest. When I arrived at work, I couldn't focus. The code on my screen blurred, and my co-workers' conversation sounded distant, like voices in a dream. At lunchtime, my manager, Karen, approached me. "Ethan, is everything okay?" she asked, her tone kind but probing. "You've been distracted lately." I forced a smile. "Just dealing with some personal stuff. I'll get back on track." Karen nodded but didn't press further. As she walked away, I noticed a figure standing just outside the office window. They wore a dark hoodie, their face obscured. My stomach dropped. I blinked, and they were gone. By the time I got home, paranoia had set in. I triple-checked the locks on my doors and windows, my eyes darting to every corner of the room. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. Around midnight, I received another text from the unknown number. "Time is a circle. The end is where you begin." Before I could process the message, my power went out. The apartment plunged into darkness, and my phone's glow became my only source of light. Panic surged as I fumbled to find a flashlight. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Was the killer here? Was I next? I stayed awake the rest of the night, every noise amplified in the oppressive silence. When dawn finally broke, the power returned as abruptly as it had vanished. Exhausted but resolute, I decided to visit Liam, hoping to make sense of the madness together. Liam's apartment felt like a sanctuary compared to mine. He greeted me with coffee and his usual sarcasm. "You look like hell," he said, handing me a mug. "What happened?" I recounted the latest events, watching his expression shift from skepticism to genuine concern. "Okay, this is officially messed up," he admitted. "Maybe we should go to the police? And tell them what? That some lunatic is leaving me riddles? They'd laugh me out of the station." Liam frowned, but didn't argue. Instead, he suggested we review the notes again, looking for connections we might have missed. As we spread them out on his coffee table, something occurred to me. The numbers and phrases seemed to form a sequence, but I couldn't yet decipher it. Then, Liam's face paled. He held up the note with the word, "Run," and compared it to a newspaper clipping about James Miller's death. In the background of a photo, partially obscured by police tape, was a wall with the same words scrawled in red paint. "This can't be a coincidence," Liam whispered. That night, I returned home feeling more trapped than ever. The killer was toying with me, their motives as elusive as their identity. The notes, the texts, the shadows at the window, all of it was leading to something, but what? As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a faint noise reached my ears. It was the tapping again, rhythmic and deliberate. But this time, it wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the apartment. The tapping inside my apartment sent me into a spiral of panic. My breaths were shallow, heart hammering in my chest as I clutched the nearest object, a heavy book, for protection. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. I needed to know. The sound came again, sharper this time, echoing from the hallway. Slowly, I crept forward, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight. My phone's flashlight barely pierced the darkness, revealing only shifting shadows and an oppressive void. "Hello?" My voice quivered, swallowed by the stillness. No response. The tapping stopped. Summoning courage, I reached the hallway and scanned its length. My apartment was modest. A living room, small kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom, yet it suddenly felt endless, the shadows alive with menace. Then, from behind the bathroom door, came a low, guttural creak. I froze. The door was ajar, a sliver of pale light spilling out onto the floor. Steeling myself, I nudged it open with the book. Inside, the mirror was shattered, shards scattered across the sink and floor. Written on the remaining glass in what looked like blood was another message. "Do you see it now?" My stomach churned. The blood, if that's what it was, had dripped onto the counter, forming tiny pools. I backed out of the bathroom, unable to tear my eyes away, and slammed the door shut. My apartment was no longer a sanctuary. It was a trap. The next day, I called Liam. "It's escalating," I said, voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "They were inside my apartment. They left another message." Liam's response was immediate. "Pack a bag. You're staying with me tonight. We'll figure this out together." By evening, I was at his place. We spent hours poring over the notes, trying to decode their meaning. The phrases, numbers, and symbols seemed random, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that they were part of a larger pattern. Liam suggested we map them out, connecting the clues like a web. As we worked, a picture began to emerge. The locations mentioned in the notes matched places tied to the recent murders. Each victim had received similar messages before their deaths, and each site held an eerie commonality, a specific symbol painted somewhere on the scene. The symbol, a circle bisected by a jagged line, was on one of the notes I'd received. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. Determined to find answers, Liam and I decided to visit one of the locations, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town where the first victim, James Miller, had been found. Armed with flashlights and a growing sense of desperation, we arrived just past midnight. The building loomed like a monolith, its broken windows and crumbling facade exuding decay. Inside, the air was damp and thick with the stench of mildew. Our footsteps echoed as we navigated the labyrinth of corridors, the flashlight beams dancing over rusted machinery and peeling paint. We were looking for something, anything, that might explain the madness. It didn't take long to find it. In the center of the main room was a crude altar, assembled from cinder blocks and splintered wood. On it lay a collection of objects, a cracked mirror, a bloodied piece of cloth, and a small, leather-bound notebook. The symbol was scrawled across the altar surface in red paint. Liam picked up the notebook, flipping through its pages. His face paled. "Ethan, these are journal entries. Descriptions of the murders. Dates, times, even details about the victims." "What?" I grabbed the notebook, scanning the pages. The handwriting matched the notes I'd received. My stomach turned as I realized the killer had been chronicling their twisted game, each entry ending with a single phrase. "The puzzle maker will complete the circle." A sudden noise shattered the silence, a metallic clang from somewhere deeper in the warehouse. We froze, listening. It came again, closer this time. My pulse quickened as we extinguished our flashlights, plunging the room into darkness. Footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate, drawing nearer. Liam mouthed, "Hide." We ducked behind a rusted metal beam, our breaths shallow. The footsteps stopped just outside the room. Through the gloom, I saw a figure silhouetted in the doorway. They were tall, clad in a dark coat, their face obscured by a hood. The figure entered, moving with unnerving precision. In their hand was a crowbar, its edge gleaming faintly. They paused at the altar, inspecting the objects as if ensuring nothing was disturbed. Then they spoke, their voice low and chilling. "The circle must be unbroken." I felt Liam's hand grip my arm, his fear mirroring my own. We needed to get out, but the figure was blocking the only exit. As they turned toward our hiding spot, I realized we had no choice. Summoning every ounce of courage, I grabbed a loose piece of metal from the floor and hurled it across the room. It clattered loudly, drawing the figure's attention. "Run!" Liam hissed. We bolted, our footsteps thundering through the warehouse. The figure gave chase, their movements eerily calm yet swift. We twisted through corridors, ducking under debris and leaping over obstacles. The exit was in sight when Liam stumbled, falling hard against the concrete. I skidded to a stop, turning back to help him up. The figure was closing in, their silhouette looming in the shadows. Desperation surged as I yanked Liam to his feet. Together, we burst through the exit and into the night. Behind us, the warehouse stood silent, its darkened windows like unblinking eyes. Back at Liam's apartment, we barricaded the door and sat in tense silence. The notebook lay between us, its pages a haunting reminder of what we'd seen. I flipped to the last entry, my hands trembling. "The final piece approaches. The puzzle maker watches." Liam met my gaze. "This isn't over, is it?" I shook my head, dread settling deep in my chest. "No, it's just beginning." Chapter 4. Confrontation with the Horror. The air in Liam's apartment was stifling, thick with unspoken fears. We had barricaded ourselves inside, but it was no comfort. The notebook lay open on the table, the words on its pages an eerie taunt. "The final piece approaches. The puzzle maker watches." Every creak of the old building made me jump. Every shadow seemed to move with intent. "We need answers," Liam said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was tense, determined. "If we keep running, we'll never stop looking over our shoulders." I nodded. though the thought of facing the puzzle maker filled me with dread. "But how do we find them?" Liam hesitated, then said, "Maybe we don't have to. Maybe they'll come to us." The plan was risky. We decided to return to the warehouse, hoping to draw the puzzle maker out. Armed with nothing but a flashlight, a crowbar, and the fraying threads of our courage, we made our way back to the scene of our terror. The warehouse was as we'd left it, a desolate husk, its emptiness yawning like a maw. The altar in the main room remained undisturbed, the symbols and artifacts untouched. We hid nearby, waiting in silence. Hours passed, the oppressive quiet broken only by the occasional drip of water from a rusted pipe. My eyelids grew heavy, the weight of exhaustion pulling me towards sleep. But then, a sound, the soft scrape of a shoe against concrete. I snapped awake, my heart pounding. A figure stepped into the room, their movements deliberate and unhurried. The flashlight beam caught the edge of a familiar coat. My breath hitched as the puzzle maker approached the altar, inspecting it with an almost reverent air. Liam tensed beside me. "Now!" he whispered. We stepped out of the shadows, weapons raised. "Don't move!" I shouted, my voice trembling. The puzzle maker froze, then slowly turned to face us. The hood fell back, revealing a face that sent a shockwave through my body. "Liam?" I whispered, staring at my friend in disbelief. It didn't make sense. The man beside me was Liam. The man in front of me was also Liam. The same sharp jawline, the same piercing eyes. My mind reeled, struggling to process the impossibility. The Liam at the altar smiled, a chilling expression devoid of warmth. "You always were clever, Ethan," he said, his voice identical to the friend at my side. "But not clever enough." I turned to the Liam beside me, searching his face for answers. "What is this? What's going on?" His expression was a mix of anger and fear. "Don't listen to him, Ethan. He's trying to manipulate you." "Am I?" the other Liam said, his tone mocking. "Or am I the one telling the truth?" The two Liams began to circle each other, their movements mirrored. My grip on the crowbar tightened as I tried to make sense of the nightmare. Memories flashed through my mind. The notes, the messages, the escalating terror. Could it all have been orchestrated by someone I trusted? "You've been played," the Liam at the altar said. "All this time, he's been leading you into the trap. He's the one who brought you here tonight. Shut up!" The Liam beside me shouted, his voice cracking. "Don't listen to him, Ethan. I've been trying to protect you." The room spun as doubt clawed at me. My thoughts raced, each one more desperate than the last. Which one was real? Which one was the puzzle maker? The choice was made for me when the Liam at the altar lunged, a knife glinting in his hand. Instinct took over. I swung the crowbar, the metal connecting with a sickening thud. He crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "Ethan!" Liam shouted, pulling me back. "Are you okay?" I stared at the body, my hand shaking. "Is it over?" But as I looked down at the lifeless form, dread crept over me. The face was no longer Liam's. It was someone else entirely, a stranger with hollow eyes and a twisted grin. Liam's hand tightened on my arm. We need to go. Now! Back at the apartment, I tried to piece together what had happened. The puzzle maker was dead. Or was he? The image of that stranger's face haunted me, a lingering question gnawing at the edges of my sanity. As I sat in the dim light, the notebook caught my eye. I flipped to the final page, my blood running cold at the sight of new words scrawled across it. The final piece is you. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The sun rose weakly over the city, its light pale and cold. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my trembling hands. The words on the final page of the notebook had burned themselves into my mind. The final piece is you. What did it mean? Was it a threat, a prophecy, or simply another cruel game? Liam had fallen asleep on the couch, exhaustion finally overtaking his vigilance. I envied his ability to rest, but my mind wouldn't let me. Images of the stranger's face, the face that wasn't Liam's, flashed before me every time I closed my eyes. I thought I'd killed the puzzle maker, but the words in the notebook suggested otherwise. The city outside seemed oblivious to the chaos that had consumed my life. People bustled on the streets, cars honked in the distance, and the world moved forward as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything was different. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the puzzle maker's game wasn't over. Liam stirred and sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, his voice groggy. I shook my head. "I can't. The notebook, those words." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Ethan, we've been through hell. We need to figure out what's real and what's not. That thing we killed, it wasn't human. It wasn't me." I nodded, but doubt still gnawed at me. "Then why did it look like you? Why did it know everything about us?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But we need to destroy that notebook. Whatever power it has, we can't let it keep controlling us." The suggestion made sense, but something in me resisted. The notebook felt like the only connection I had to the puzzle maker, the only way to understand what was happening. Still, I couldn't ignore the danger it posed. We decided to burn it. Liam set up a small fire in an old metal bin in the alley behind the apartment. The flames flickered, casting long shadows against the brick walls. I held the notebook in my hands, its leather cover cool to the touch despite the heat of the fire. "Do it," Liam urged, his eyes fixed on the flames. I hesitated. The words on the final page seemed to pulse in my mind. "The final piece is you." It felt as if the notebook was alive, as if it was waiting for something. "Ethan," Liam said more firmly, "throw it in." With a deep breath, I forced myself to let go. The notebook fell into the fire, its pages curling and blackening almost instantly. The smell of burning paper filled the air, acrid and sharp. For a moment, I felt a sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted. But then the flames changed. They turned an unnatural shade of green, flaring brighter and higher than seemed possible. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became a deafening roar. Liam and I stumbled back, shielding our faces from the heat. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the fire died down, leaving nothing but ashes. The alley was silent once more, but the unease in my chest remained. We returned to the apartment, hoping the destruction of the notebook had ended the puzzle maker's game. But as night fell, the unease turned to dread. The apartment felt different, as if the walls themselves were watching us. Liam tried to distract me, suggesting we watch a movie or order food, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the empty space on the table where the notebook had been. I felt its absence like a phantom limb. Around midnight, there was a knock at the door. Liam and I froze, exchanging a look of alarm. No one should have known we were here. "Stay here," Liam whispered, grabbing the crowbar from earlier. He moved cautiously toward the door, his movements silent. I followed a few steps behind, unable to ignore the pounding of my heart. He opened the door slowly, the hinges creaking. There was no one there, just the empty hallway, dimly lit by a flickering bulb. But on the floor, there was a package. Wrapped in plain brown paper, it bore no markings except for a single word scrawled in red ink: Ethan. I didn't want to open it, but I couldn't stop myself. With trembling hands, I tore away the paper, revealing a small wooden box. Inside was a single puzzle piece, its surface blank and smooth. Beneath it was a note. "The game is never over. The final piece is you." I dropped the box as if it had burned me, my breath coming in short gasps. Liam picked it up, his face pale as he read the note. "We need to leave. Now!" But as we turned to gather our things, the lights in the apartment flickered and went out. The room plunged into darkness, and a familiar voice filled the air, chilling me to my core. "Leaving so soon?" The puzzle maker's laugh echoed around us, and I realized the game had only just begun.